Hello, everybody. It is Cathy with Backyard Columbus, and it is a late day for me. I've just got home. I've worked 12 and a half hours today at my real job, but I really wanted to get this podcast episode recorded and out because consistency is key, right? And so, um, the way I like to do these podcasts is I kind of pick a spontaneous topic of what I've been doing in the yard. And so yesterday I spent all day outside, and yes, it was hot, but I'm indoors all day like a lot of us when we do our work. And so I just like to be outside as much as I can. So various project, we have a huge chicken coop project we just wrapped up. So we built a brand new chicken coop, a pen, a fort, like all the things for the chickens. And then I tinkered around the yard just doing various things like butterfly stuff and all these things. But today's topic is about gardening for wildlife, and I mean that in a practical way. Okay, so one of the things I may not have shared with you before is I'm a habitat ambassador for the National Wildlife Federation, and there is a lot more to that than you would think. Had a background check, had to take tests, all the things, because as a representative of that organization, they want to make sure you aren't, an evildoer or any weird stuff like that. So anyway, I love to go to places, and I don't do this often because I work full time, but on the occasion that I can, I go to various organizations and share how you garden for wildlife. Last week, I went to the Governor's Mansion and the Heritage Gardens here in Columbus, Ohio, and that's kind of a big deal. I mean, the gardens there are beautiful, and Hope Taft, one of the first ladies that we had here look, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not quite sure when. I'm going to guess the 80s, but I'm not really sure. No offense to them, I just didn't look that part up. But she started this beautiful garden and with a special emphasis on natives, okay? And so they asked a representative from the National Wildlife Federation to come out and educate their volunteers on how you can take some of these principles and bring it into your home, like your outdoor space. So I got to go, and it was a great time. They were very welcoming, and it is always fun to talk to an enthusiastic crowd. And many of them probably knew more than I do about gardening. And so I wanted to share that. So that's some education that I do on the side. But this is one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast, is because then I can share these things with any of you who may be listening, and hopefully you'll take away anything that I say and incorporate it into your own home, your outdoor spaces. And so as I was outside the other day and looking around, so one of the things that made me want to share this topic today was we have about 3 varieties, actually, of elderberries. And an elderberry bush, it's like a tree bush thing, it gets to be a pretty tall bush. One of ours is above our house now because it needs to be trimmed back a bit. But anyway, it is a native plant here to Ohio, probably across North America. I have not looked that up. I will tell you again, or remind you, that I am not an expert in anything that I share with you, but I am passionate about all of the subjects that I do share. I probably know more than the average person, but certainly not an extensive array of knowledge on any of it. But anyway, elderberries are a great landscape plant. They get a beautiful little flower in the spring, a bract of flowers. So that just means like a handful of teeny weeny flowers. It looks like it's one giant flower. One variety is pink, another variety is white. But then in the summer, those flowers turn into fruit. And that's where obviously you get elixirs and elderberry pie and jam and wine and all the things. And if I had time, I would love to make all of that. But I don't. So I leave it for the birds. And it was great yesterday seeing all of the birds, robins, chickadees, all kinds of birds, going to the trees, the bushes of elderberries, and eating the fruit that we have provided for them. So on a practical level, why would I waste money putting out bird seed when I've planted plants that provide food for free? For years and years. I mean, originally, obviously, I had to buy the bush, but this is what gardening for wildlife is all about. So you provide the things that nature needs, and nature will take advantage of it. So sometimes I get a little bit I wonder when I say garden for wildlife or gardening for nature, if people think that I mean like possums and skunks and raccoons and things like that. And that tends to give people the creeps. I mean, if you love all those things, they all have a purpose. I'm honestly not quite sure what the raccoon has other than to annoy me and get into our landscape and dig it all up. But possums are good for you. They actually eat the ticks in the yard. I mean, what a horrible lot in life. That's what you do, is go around the yard and look for ticks. But I will tell you, if you didn't know this, they almost never get rabies. So they are a good thing to have around. And if you can get past the fact that the adults are kind of dirty, the little babies are awfully cute. Skunks will go through and eat grubs out of your yard. And so these things all have a place. But what I am talking about is not trying to attract those kinds of critters to your yard. Although, again, if you love them, knock yourself out. I'm more talking about pollinators, birds, bees, butterflies, all things like that. Okay. So those don't tend to bother too many people unless you are allergic to bees, then that's a different story. But when we talk about gardening for wildlife, there are a set of things that if you would like to attract these things, and I've said this a billion times on this podcast, is the reason people complain that they don't see butterflies anymore is because collectively we've all wiped out their habitat. And, me, you, the average homeowner, we didn't mean to do those things. We just don't realize it. We buy a house, we buy the stock landscaping that came with the new house, or you move in to an existing home, you're busy, maybe you have kids, maybe you have pets, maybe you just have busy careers, and you don't have time to tend to the yard or improve the yard, and you just stick with the tree and the bushes like the yews and the whatever other kind of bushes. What is that? I can't think of the name. It's has thorns all over it. Anyway, I'll think of it here in a minute. Anyway, they don't do anything for wildlife, okay? And so the reason that we don't see any butterflies is because we have wiped out the things that they need. Nectar-producing flowers, their host plants, which if this is your first time listening to my podcast, first of all, thank you very much. But second of all, a host plant is what the butterfly or moth needs in order to lay its eggs. And once those eggs hatch, the caterpillars that you now have eat the leaves of that host plant. Okay, so a perfect example is monarchs need milkweed in order to survive. If we do not have milkweed, any species of milkweed, okay, it doesn't have to be one in particular, but if you do not provide milkweed, the monarchs would actually go extinct. It is not possible for an animal quickly, I mean, maybe over hundreds, if not thousands of years, you can adapt to something different, but you can't do that overnight, okay? So in a very short period of time, monarchs can't just say, oh, well, I'll just go lay my egg on an oak leaf and it will be completely fine. They must have milkweed. So every butterfly and every moth has a particular plant or a family of plants that's what they need. So those have been wiped out. We plant things in our yards like hydrangeas, tiger lilies. I'm not altogether certain, but I do think that those are exotic. But exotic Asiatic lilies, roses, those actually are sterile and they don't provide any nectar and they don't provide any pollen. So look, I'm sure there are a few native roses, but I am talking about what are those things called? The knockout roses, all these fancy variety of roses. If you're a rose person, then that's fine. Plant the roses and put a smile on your face. But that is not what birds, bees, and butterflies need, okay? They need, or I should say what they ultimately need is the native plants, which have grown in your area. So if you're here in Columbus, Ohio, when you hear people talk about native plants, because that is a big buzzword right now, native plants, said in my way without me literally looking it up again, is plants since the dawn of time that have grown in the area where you live, okay? So for Ohio, like an elderberry or black-eyed Susans or things like that. In California, it would be different than we have here, but there are native plants to North America, and then each region, each state, sometimes, not often, each county, okay? So it can get very specific. Like There was a golden toad in Costa Rica that was only found in 1 square mile, and that was it. So unfortunately, those went extinct, I think in the 80s. So the very last one was found in the 80s. So plants and animals can get very specific and only occupy one little small space. But what we're talking about here is in the state of Ohio, for Ohio, of course, what has grown here, and then our native bees, butterflies, and birds have all grown accustomed to gathering food from those plants. Not that they won't go to something else. I mean, there are varieties of plants that come from other countries that still produce nectar and pollen, but overwhelmingly native is the way to go. And I just saw one statistic that if you can shoot for 70%, I mean, look, shoot, I would say if you could at least get started and you had anything that was native. So if you have a yard that you're starting from scratch, if you have a yard that's just a bunch of stupid bushes and no trees, then just pick one thing. And I'll tell you, if you say, hey, I could get started and plant a tree, then you would plant an oak tree. An oak tree will provide not only shelter, which we're going to get into this more in just a second, but it is a host plant for over 400, if not over 500 species of butterflies and moths. So just by planting an oak tree, you've done an amazing thing. So again, that means the butterfly, whichever species it is that uses an oak tree as a host plant, will fly along, lay its eggs on the oak leaf, and then that's what the caterpillar eats. And listen, when I say the caterpillar eats this, it is not, I promise you, going to strip the leaves off your tree. If we're talking about bagworms, those thing that makes those webs on the tree leaves, then that might be a different story. But your average butterfly and moth, that does not happen, okay? All the pretty butterflies, it is not going to decimate your landscaping, okay? So no worries on that front. So if you would like to attract more pretty wildlife and pollinators to your yard, there are 5 things that will help do that, all right? The first is food. So we all need to eat, and without the proper food, we're all going to die, or without food, period. So butterflies and moths use nectar, bees use nectar and pollen, and again, native plants will provide that. If you have no room, say you're an apartment dweller, and you're like, well, dang it, like, I don't have a yard. So listen, maybe you hang a hummingbird feeder with a sugar water solution that you've made yourself. On a side note, the red dyed liquid that you get in the store is terrible for them. It's got too many chemicals in it. So 4 cups of water to 1 cup of sugar, mix it all up, and voila, you have a very cheap and healthy sugar water mixture for your hummingbird. So you could put out a hummingbird feeder, you could put out a bird feeder. Okay, so this is like the fail safe, is, if that's a phrase. That's you don't have any place to plant anything, you could do that. You could also plant a pot of nectar-producing flowers, and I love zinnias. I've said that many times. They are native to the southwest United States, so no harm done on that. Plant a pot of zinnias, and you have provided food for butterflies and bees. They produce nectar and pollen every single day, as does every native plant. Okay, so every day, I don't know, magically, it just produces more nectar and pollen. However that happens, I'm not sure, but it does. Okay, so those are some examples of food. Now, on that front also, planting native fruit-bearing bushes or trees like a pawpaw. If you do not know what that is North America's largest native fruit. So if you're ever on Jeopardy, you have that answer. A pawpaw tree is also the exclusive host plant for the zebra swallowtail butterfly. It is a black and white butterfly that has stripes like a zebra. Very pretty. So if you plant a pawpaw tree, you will provide food for probably possums and raccoons and yourself. And then you will actually provide food with the leaves for the zebra swallowtail butterfly, and then the shelter for other things that may make a nest in there. Okay, so providing food is a pretty easy one. The next thing, we all need water, and without water, we would die. So you could have a bird bath. We actually have 3 ponds on our property. You could have just a shallow tray of water, like that's okay too. So any way that something can get water, various ways you can do that. And I'll tell you, if you're ever like, man, I wish I could have a pond, but we don't have the space. We have 2 ponds in our backyard that are probably I don't know. One, it can't be but 3 feet deep. The other one might be 4 feet deep. And they're each about, let's say, 4 by 3 or something like that. We have another one next to our front porch that can't be but 2.5 feet round and 2.5 feet deep. I made that in an afternoon. You can actually find that on my YouTube channel. I will tell you, it wasn't the most beautiful video I've ever done. That was done a long time ago. I don't even know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it's not beautiful, but it is practical. I showed you how to do it, and it was a cheap, easy way to add in a water feature that dragonflies actually found and laid eggs in all of our ponds. So we live in a smack in the middle of the suburbs. So the point that overwhelmingly I will be making in this podcast episode is when you provide a spot for nature, they will find you. And it's just really cool to see. All right, so food, water, and cover. We all like to have shelter, and cover can be a tree, a bush, a birdhouse, okay? Anywhere where you can find cover, a brush pile. I don't know too many people that are going to go for that because that can also attract rodents, but at any rate, a brush pile, a little thing of logs, anything like that. Okay, so a bird house will do the trick if you are limited on space or you limited on time or ability. I mean, there are many people that I know, like physically they are unable to just walk all around their yard. So maybe right outside your back porch, you put a little birdhouse, and that's okay too. So they will all find all the spots that they need. Actually, the mason bees, they are little tiny bees that look like honeybees. They are the earliest of spring bees, and they don't sting. So that's what's really cool. They actually will find reeds, like hollow grasses and little stems of flowers that when you cut them down, they have a hole in them. Or the ends of the patio chairs, like a little bistro set, the ends of that wrought iron often curl around and the ends of it are often open. Well, those mason bees will find either those reeds, the holes in the stems of the flowers, or holes in, not wood, they're not the ones that make the holes in the wood, but the ends of those bistro chairs and all that. They will actually go in there, lay an egg, pack it with mud, lay an egg, pack it with mud, like 5 or 6 eggs deep. So nature always finds its own space. So that's kind of a fun thing. Those bee houses, they sell bee houses online and in some stores, and they're little like, bamboo rods, like bamboo sticks, and they're hollow, and they put a little sign on it, says a bee house or whatever kind of insect house. I will tell you that that is not what the bees require. They will find spots in nature to lay their eggs, but it is a great source of education either for you, which I don't have any little kids that live here anymore, but I love seeing them because in the spring, it is a flurry of activity. All of the bees are emerging and coming out of that house. They've eaten their way through the mud, so they fly out to go pollinate. And then other bees are moving in as the old ones vacate and laying their eggs inside the tube. So it's really, really cool. So even a bee house is a fun thing. Just go buy one and get your kicks out of that. So food, water, cover, and places to raise young. So a milkweed, again, back to that because that's an easy one, that kind of hits a few different things. It provides food for the caterpillar, the monarch caterpillar. It provides food in it milkweeds, and they are not weeds. That's just what they're called. I wish they would call them like milk flowers and people wouldn't get so freaked out about it. Anyway, they have beautiful flowers. The common milkweed has a beautiful flower midsummer, and it smells so nice. It's very fragrant, but not overpowering. Anyway, it provides nectar and pollen every day. Loads of bees. My bumblebees love them. They go to them every single day. Butterflies, moths, everybody hits that, okay? So it's providing food, but it is also providing a place to raise young because those caterpillars have to have those leaves in order to survive. Okay, the milkweed is actually, it has a sap. It's that milky sap, that's why it's called milkweed, and it provides the toxicity to the caterpillars and then the butterflies, which make them unpalatable to many predators. So anyway, that is the glory of milkweed. So places to raise young, it can also be a birdhouse because that is where they would raise their young, okay? So various things, and you can get on NWF.org. That's the National Wildlife Federation, Garden for Wildlife, and it will give you a whole list. It has a native plant list finder, so you can get a lot of information and really great ideas on there. Homegrown National Park, Homegrown National Park, started by Doug Tallamy, that has a lot of great information on that too, of how each one of us can provide all of these things in our own yard, and then collectively it's like the size of a national park, okay, if that makes sense. So, and the last thing of 5 is sustainable gardening practices. So here's the thing: if you want to see butterflies, if you want to see beautiful moths like the Luna moth, if you don't know what that looks like, it is a lime green, beautiful, majestic moth that when it makes its cocoon, it ends up in the leaf litter. Okay. And so if you are a person that did not know that when you get your yard broad sprayed with pesticides and insecticides, that is not only killing the mosquitoes or I honestly don't even know what people are spraying for in the yard, the flying insects that they don't want. That stuff does not discriminately kill, it indiscriminately kills. So it's killing the fireflies in the grass, it is killing that Luna moth that is overwintering in the grass. And by the way, I don't know all of the moths and butterflies that overwinter or form their cocoons or chrysalises in the grasses, but it is a noticeable amount. Like it's what's the word? Not negligible. Anyway, it's a lot, okay? And so when you spray all that stuff, it's hitting all of that, not to mention the overspray that's getting on bushes and trees, and so it's killing all of it. And so people who spray their yards do not realize they're killing the fireflies that they miss that they used to see as a kid, okay? So sustainable gardening practices is a really great way. And listen, baby steps, okay? If you are a person who loves a golf course lawn, I'm not sure I'm ever going to convince you to not spray, but perhaps talk to a company that legitimately does organic, natural lawn care. There are some that say they do. Listen, there are people who will come to your door. This has happened to 2 of my friends lately. They come to your door, knock, knock. They're here because they're in your neighborhood and they provide pest removal, like by spraying lawns. I said to one person, I said, I don't spray my lawn. We have all natural lawn. And he said something about spiders. And I said, I don't kill spiders. And he said, their spray doesn't kill them. It just makes them go somewhere else. Well, I got a lot to say about that. None of it's nice. That's ridiculous. These people are bluntly lying. I mean, they said basically the same thing to a friend of mine. Well, we don't really kill anything. It's not really harmful. Well, it is. I mean, whether someone wants to admit it or not, pesticides and insecticides are poisons. Necessary to some people or not, okay? I'm not even getting into whether you want to or don't want to use them. They're acting like this stuff is not bad. And it is. So it's defeating the purpose of trying to attract nature into your yard when you're killing it once it gets there. And these people will just act like it's totally fine. So finding a reputable place that legitimately is using nature-friendly stuff. Now, listen, I'm not going to tell you that it is 100% as effective as using the hardcore stuff like Roundup, because it isn't. But it's I've been wanting to say this, and hopefully you'll will understand what I'm saying. For all of the people that I know who are conspiracy theorists and I don't know, the man is trying to stick it to them and they're getting sold a line of goods all the time. Well, one of the biggest loads of crap that people have bought into is that all of us need a golf course green lawn, and we can't have anything other than green grass, which is kind of a weed. I mean, unless you're an ant, nothing uses just turf grass. Okay, that's what they're referring to, is like your golf course lawn turf grass. That is not really providing a habitat for anything, and you're spending money to fertilize it, money to put pesticides and insecticides on it, like money, money, money. We're raking all of the leaves off the lawn, which actually feed the lawn, which I know if you've listened to me, again, thank you, but I've said that before. I just don't think, we're all busy, and so if you're not into this kind of thing, you don't think about this. But if you always rake everything off your lawn, then you're forced to spend money to feed your lawn. Whereas if you just mulched up the leaves, so sometimes you have to do it a couple of times, so you don't leave big, huge things of leaves all over your lawn, that will degrade and feed the lawn naturally. Now, the bad thing is if you were hoping to attract a Luna moth, and you'd have to look up what its host plant is. I can't recall off the top of my head. I think hickory and walnut are two of them. If it is in the leaf litter in its cocoon and you mulch all that up, then uh-oh. So it always doesn't work out perfectly, but you get the point, okay? So if you provide food, water, cover, places to raise young, and sustainable gardening practices, provide some host plants, get some nectar producing and pollen producing native plants, you will certainly find more joy in your yard, have more than just a patio, and really see some cool things come to your yard. So I would, if I may ask you a favor, I would absolutely appreciate it if you would share my podcast, any episode. I think this is episode 58, with any of your friends. All of your friends would be great. I would appreciate it because I love spreading the word and helping people get more joy out of their backyard, front yard, side yard, all of it. And again, I thank you for listening and have an awesome day.